Hey everyone, it's Keeley here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video, which I am super excited to finally be able to make and release. I wanted to do this back at the end of June, and in fact I told my patron members all about it, but I was told by the creator that it wasn't quite ready, and I didn't want to release something that could potentially change between me releasing a video and them announcing that it was all finally ready. When I was told in mid-July that it was all right to go, I had a couple of things on my weekends and wasn't able to make the video, but at long last I have time, and I am so super excited to announce that there is a new soap calculator available. This has been created by my very good friend Lee over at Wicked Lee Goods, and I can tell you she has put so much thought and effort into this soap calculator, and it is one of the best ones I have seen that is free for you to use. There are so many soap calculators out there on the market, but they all seem to be lacking something somewhere, and you often find yourself jumping between different calculators depending upon what recipe you're trying to create. But Lee has managed to get so much of it into this one calculator. Of course, there are limitations with what you can do in terms of website building without crashing it, which I will actually explain in one of them. But she has managed to get so much stuff into this soap calculator that I think it will be a go-to for many people, whether you are a beginner soap maker or whether you are advanced and have been making soap for ages. This calculator is just absolutely brilliant and so easy to use, and it's really aesthetically pleasing as well to look at on the screen. I know that Lee was talking not only to myself and a couple of others, asking for input. So we've, said, oh, you've missed this, you've missed that. Can you put this in? We've bombarded her with all these different things. And she did. She put so much into it. We did have a discussion about something that I felt that she should have put onto this soap calculator, which she did not want to do. And I understand her reasonings, but we then came up with what I thought was a compromise until I saw what that compromise looked like on the screen. And I can tell you, Lee, I am cross with you. I have not told you this through messages. I was waiting to do the video, but I am cross with you. Don't you trick me again. I will tell everyone what that is towards the end of this video, because I think it is something that really, really needs to be highlighted, and I would appreciate it if people actually helped me show Lee a little bit of appreciation. But let's get on to having a look at this brand new soap calculator, because honestly, it's on my screen here. Honestly, it is just so nice to look at, and it is so easy to use and so customizable to what you want to create in soap. So let's jump onto it. So there's a couple of ways to get onto the soap calculator page here. The first is to come to the Wickedly goods.com website, and up in the top right hand corner we've got Soap Calc, and you click on that and it brings you through to soapcalc.wickedlygoods.com, and that is the web address for this soap calculator. I've left it down in the description box so you can actually just go and click on it, and once you go into it, go and save it into your bookmarks so it makes it much easier to access, or make sure it stays in your history as well. It is going to look very different according to whether you are on a desktop or on a phone, and whether you use a white or a dark setting. So this on my desktop is nice and bright and fresh and clean, and honestly the aesthetics of it just makes me feel so calm and makes me feel that this website is going to be nice and easy to use. On my phone, I actually use dark mode to make it easier on the eyes. So it does have a slightly different coloring, and we have to scroll down the page to see everything, but it's still really nicely laid out on the page. But let's take a look at what we've got here. As I said, we've got quite a few common things that are found on lots of soap calculators because they are essential, but there are little bits and pieces along the way that just really highlight or make this calculator so different to everything else. We start with our lye type and purity, and as with all calculators, we have sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide, so solid bars and liquid, but she's also built in the ability to do your dual lye ones. So these are for people who want to make cream soaps, or even something like a shaving soap where you don't want it too hard but you don't want it too soft either. Your dual lye soaps are really good for that, and she allows you to actually put in what sort of percentage of sodium hydroxide to potassium hydroxide that you want to use. And then something else, I'm going to go back to our sodium hydroxide. Something else she has included, which is missing in a lot of calculators, is allowing you to set the purity of your hydroxide. Normally your potassium hydroxide is set down, I think it's 95% or something, or 90. It is not pure, and most calculators already have that in place. But what most people don't realize is that not all sodium hydroxide is pure either. Usually it sits about 98 to 99%, which doesn't make a big difference in the whole scheme of things. But I do know some people want that ability to put in that purity, and this allows you to do that, to get those super accurate working out. So love that she's got that in there. I'm going to leave it at sodium hydroxide with 100% purity. Next we have the master batching, and this is for anyone that does make master batch of their lyes, and generally most people do it as a 1-for-1 ratio, but she does have it that you can change it. So if you've got like a 1.2 liquid to 1 part lye, you can change that in here, and then it helps calculate it through your whole recipe. Personally, I don't master batch in that way. I actually master batch, so I make my lye based on making 20 kilos worth of oil, and then I pour off what I need. I found when I master batch, I've done a video on it, I make so many mistakes that I just found my own way. So I'm going to untick that for now. And then we'll come on to our water calculations. And again, this is pretty standard across all calculators. So you can tell it to work out your water as a percentage of your oils. You can tell it the lye concentration you want. And you can also tell it the water to lye ratio that you want to use in it. I have always used the water as a percentage of oils. I've always just felt it was easier to calculate, made more sense in my head. I ended up with less mistakes. And I'm going to change that down to 30% because that's what I like to soap at, but you can change that to whatever you prefer to as well. And then something else that she added in here, which is missing from so many other calculators. There are a few out there that do allow you to do this, but they have other disadvantages, is she has added in chelators and hardeners as well. So at the moment, it's very common for people to add citric acid into their soaps as a chelator or chelator. And that is to reduce some of the soap scum that you can get if you've got hard water in your area. But when you do add citric acid into your soap, you don't just simply add in the same amount of sodium hydroxide as you would without it. You do need to recalculate that sodium hydroxide to take into account that citric acid. So by adding it in here, it does calculate how much sodium hydroxide you are going to need in your end soap. I'm going to untick that at the moment because I don't use it. Mind you, I'm going to create a recipe here that I'm not actually going to make, so it doesn't really matter. But anyhow, we'll keep going. They're just options there that if you want to use them, you can. The next bit is how we're going to actually calculate our recipe. Do you want to calculate it by percentages, or do you want to actually tell it the exact weight that you want to include in here? Typically, I work in percentages, but if you want to do it by weight, say you've got, you're going to make a 1,000 gram oil weight, and you want to use 600 of coconut and 400 of olive oil, you can actually put it in that way, or you can say you want 60% and 40%. I'm going to leave it as a percentage, and I'm going to tell it that we want that 1,000 grams of oil, which is the sort of standard that Lee has got in here. But again, you can change that to whatever you want it to be, and the calculator works around that. But we're going to leave it in as 1,000 because that's a typical sort of weight for most soap molds. We then have our typical super fat, and again, you can change that to whatever you need it to be based on what sort of oils and things like that you're using and what you want your soap to be. And then we have our fragrance, and again, we can change those percentages, making sure you check your IFRA ratings to make sure that it is safe to use at those rates. But what I love is that I can write the name of the fragrance oil that I want to use in here. So let's say I want to use a coffee one. So we say coffee, and then we click next. Now you can also use these tabs up the top to jump between the screens here. And you can also use previous if you want to go back and change anything. But our next step is to go and add our oils. Now for this one, I am just going to go through and add the basic oils that we typically use. So I'm going to kind of go for that triad oil recipe. I remember learning all about this when I first started soap making, and they said for anyone sort of trying, using this triad of soap oils is usually, you know, safe, easy to do. So don't come at me for putting palm oil in here. You can put whatever you want. I'm just going to say coconut, olive, and palm. I'm going to add one more in here as well, and that is going to be castor oil. You can actually see more about these oils by clicking the information button, and it gives you your saponification values, gives you any of your sort of creaminess, bubbliness, how well it bubbles, as well as your sort of fatty acid profile of them as well. So you can always get that information from there. But we're going to add in our castor oil. If you want to delete any of them, just click on the delete. Very, very easy to do. You can also search for your oils. There are so many in here. If you know exactly what you want, and it's going to be right at the bottom of the list, say you want some wheat germ oil, just type in wheat germ and it will bring it up for you. So we'll take that back out and we're going to say next. And this page overwhelms me. There are so many different additives that she has included in here that you can add in to your soap. We've even got things like snake skin as well. There is just so much in here. And you know, if you can't find what you're looking for and you think it's something that other people are going to use, message Lean. I'm sure she'll be able to put it in. But quite often with these additives, it doesn't actually make a huge impact on the numbers of your soap and, you know, creating the lye component. So if it's not there, don't panic too much. Just make a note of it on your recipe somewhere that you're also going to add in something else. For this one, I'm going to add in some coffee grounds. And here you can actually say whether you want it as a percentage of part of your soap process. She has got teaspoons and tablespoons, which is something that most people will not recommend that you do, that you really want to be working in either weight or percentages. So I'm going to leave it as grams. What I will say to you is if you do as a percentage of oils, one of the limitations with this website is that it does not work that percentage out. You need to work it out yourself. So if you want to use it at 3% of your oils, you actually really do need to know that that is 30 grams if you're doing a 1 kilo batch as I'm doing here. But that's just one minor thing. It's something you just need to work out. But she also lets you put in how you're actually going to add this in. So if you're actually building a recipe, it can remind you at what stage you're going to put it in. And I'm going to say, pardon me, to put it in to the batter when we've got it at trace. So now we've got that, I'm going to click on next, and this is where we can add other liquids into our soaps. And there are quite a few different liquids here that you can do, and I am going to go for milk. Now she does have things like goat's milk, coconut milk, but not all the milks are listed here, but it does say milk, general, cow, soy, oat. So it doesn't matter, it's not going to affect the lye calculations or anything. This is just something to put in there so you know to add it in. Now again, you can add this in as a percentage and your other measurements, but again, it does not work it. If you say a percentage of oils, it will not work out that percentage for you. So I will actually put it in just to actually show you. Say we're going to use it at 10% of our oil, so it would be 100 grams, and I'm going to add it in with the oils. I don't have access to a freezer, so I add my liquids into my oils so we don't scorch them, but I will show you what happens when we do it that way. Then we click next. We actually need to tell it a bit more about our recipe build here, and as I said, I'm going to go for that classic sort of triad, and I added that castor oil so we could just make it around 10% at the bottom. And what you're looking for is this section down here to go green. If you were to say enter that at 20, it's come up too much, it's red. If you were to add that in at 2%, it's still red. We want that to go in at 10% and come up green down here. Now we can actually change our name here. So we're going to say our coffee soap. That's what we're going to call it. And you can make any other notes that you want to do about this soap. So I said I was going to add the milk in at 10% of our recipe. So I'm going to maybe just put 100 grams milk there. You can add in what colors you're going to use, anything like that. Then we're going to say next, and this is where we get to review all those numbers. Now, some people get really hung up on these numbers. I don't. The reason I don't get too hung up on these numbers is because we're going to add something in like cow's milk, and these numbers don't take into effect or into account what effect adding cow's milk actually has to a soap. It does actually make it creamier, and it can actually reduce that sort of cleansing because it's a little bit more conditioning. So I don't get too hung up on these numbers, but they do come up, and she has this really good, it tells you the sort of perfect ranges that you want to be in for each of these numbers, and just having all those different colors makes it really easy to see. And then we have, you know, all of our typical fatty acid profiles here. I usually look at this saturated versus unsaturated fats just to try and get sort of an even balance there, but that's pretty much all that I really look at. And then she's got just a couple of other bits of information here just to help you avoid things like the dreaded orange spots. So saying it needs to be below, usually ideally below 15%. I'm currently sitting at 8, so we should be fine with this one. And then we have a few options down here, including save our recipe, load recipes, and start new. So if we say save recipe, you can see I've already been playing in here. I am going to save it over the top of that file, and then it's there in the system for me the next time I want to come back. But what we will actually do, you can say, if you click view recipe, it actually takes you back a tab. We want to actually have a look at the recipe at the end. So if I say print recipe, we'll get rid of that. It will bring up what is essentially a PDF, but I'm actually going to go to my full screen or my full results to show you on this page. Again, we've got our print up here too. What we've got here, so we can see we're making our coffee soap. We're using Wicked Lee's Soap Calc. We can see that we want how much lye we need, how much liquid, how much which fragrance and how much. We've got all the typical sort of numbers up here about our soap, and then as we come down we can see that we've got our coconut oil, palm, olive and castor and how much of each we need. We can see that I manually put in to have those coffee grounds, the 30 grams that I'm going to add in to the batter, but this is what I mean. There are some limitations. You can see we've got our milk that I want to add in at 10% of the oils, but it doesn't tell me what 10% is. Lee has looked at it. It's going to break the website if we do it. So I would kind of really work it out and do it like we did our coffee grounds and to add to the batter or to the oils. That is one slight limitation. The other limitation with it is if we actually come back to our custom milks and we'll actually change that to say we want 100 grams of milk with our oils, and come back to our full results here. So you can see that I've now got my cow's milk with 100. The only other problem is it does not take that 100 grams from off your 300 grams of liquid. So you have to remember to do that yourself. Otherwise you are going to end up with a higher water content or liquid content in your soap. So in essence, I only need 200 grams of water and then my 100 grams of soap to get that 300 grams. It is a limitation with the process, but as long as you remember to take it off, everything is fine. If we go back into this print, what I really liked about what she's done here as well, this was something she was determined to do, was to put little check boxes. So as you're actually measuring your oils out, you can tick them off as you measure out all of these other little bits. You tick them off to say that you've done them, and hopefully that means you're not going to miss popping them in. But you can then actually print that up and you've got your recipe ready to go. Now, what I'm going to do is actually just refresh my screen and come back to the beginning here. And what we're going to do, we're going to ignore this page, come over to oils, and if we go load recipe, we're going to open up this one, and you can see it's going to bring our little recipe up for us. So if you are actually using the same one again and again, you can actually, if you've lost your original printout, we've got all of that information ready to go. So I absolutely love what she has done with this soap calculator. Okay, so I've just refreshed the screen and come back to what you would see if you actually jumped onto the soap calculator as it is. I think this soap calculator is absolutely fantastic. I have been looking at other soap calculators that are out there. Many of them are very basic, with just putting in the hydroxides, oils, and it gives you that side of the recipe. Some of them that do actually let you drill down a little bit more, they actually won't give you the full recipe until you create an account with them. There are others which do have set like portions of what's in this soap calculator but missing other parts. Whereas I do feel that even though there are a couple of things in there which I'm sure Lee will work on over time, such as not being able to calculate your liquid and taking it out of your liquid if you are adding extras, I'm sure she'll work on it. Even though there are those few little minor things, I think the rest of the soap calculator far outweighs it. Everything that you need is in this one calculator, and the best bit is it is free for people to use, and you do not need to create accounts to be able to use it. Now, I did say at the beginning of the video that Lee and I had a discussion and we came to a compromise, which I am cross about. So now it's time to discuss what I am so cross with Lee about. So she has put so much work and effort into this soap calculator. She was sending me snippets of it the whole time. She was sending me frustrated messages about what was and wasn't working and how she'd do something and it would break something else. She spent so much time building this soap calculator for other soap makers to use free. She has also got it on her website, so she is paying to host this page, this calculator for you. And hosting, if you don't own a website, hosting a website is not cheap. It is a yearly expense that comes up every year, or if you have a 2 or 3 year contract, it is something that comes up regularly, has to be paid, otherwise your website gets taken down. We've seen that happen with a number of websites, especially one in recent times, which caused panic amongst the soaping community. But she is paying for that, and she has spent all of her time creating this soap calculator. And I said to her while she was building it that something else that I felt that she should have on here, which is on a majority of other soap calculators out there, unless you are paying for that soap calculator, such as something like Soapmaker 3, is to put Google Ads. And she flat out refused. And I understand why. One of the reasons I actually stopped using Soap Calc was because the level of ads a couple of years ago, it wasn't too bad. And then all of a sudden you used to just get bombarded with ads. And they are so frustrating if people are just literally putting so many ads to get lots and lots of revenue rather than putting ads strategically through a website. I don't mind when they're strategically placed and don't interfere with how I am working with that website. So I do understand Lee's reluctance to put Google ads on there. She also didn't want to have to try and work out how to put it on there. And she's also the sort of person that will not ask you to pay for something like using this website. So I understand her reasonings, and I said, well, can you at least put a buy me a coffee on there, which she agreed to. And this is where I'm cross with you, Lee. Because even though she agreed to put buy me a coffee, who saw it? Who saw down the bottom here, hidden away, so you can't really, you're not really seeing it. Love this Soap Calc, why not buy me a coffee? It is so small and tiny compared to everything else and so hidden. I'm cross. I'm really, really cross. I honestly do feel that because of the amount of money that she will have to pay to host this over the years, and I know she's not going to just put this out here and leave it at this. She will keep working on it. I bet she finds a way of actually making it so that it will calculate the additives and things as percentages and taking them off liquids. I'm sure she will work on that. So it's not something she's just leaving here. She needs to be paid for her time to do this and her time, her hosting fees to put this on for people to be able to use free. So honestly, if you love this Soap Calc as much as I think people are going to love it and you are going to use it and it makes your soaping life easier, please, please, at least just once, click on this button and then go and support her with a cup of coffee. You don't have to use these amounts that come up. If you can only afford a couple of dollars, just pop them in there. And I can tell you that every time something like that comes through to her, you absolutely make her day. I get those messages and she is just very humbled when people do that sort of thing. So honestly, if you are going to get a lot of use out of this calculator, please say thank you to her with just a little bit of a donation, which will then enable her to pay for another year worth of hosting to keep this up there for you. But Lee, I am very cross with how hidden that is, and I think it should have been just that little bit more brighter and bolder, and you should, as you say, get paid for your time and your work and your efforts. But not going to say anymore because I know I'm going to get a dirty message on my phone from her now. But I honestly do feel that this is such a fantastic soap calculator, and I really do hope that other people are going to enjoy using it too. So I hope you have enjoyed coming along with me today as I showcased Lee's new soap calculator. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up, any comments down below, and then go and check out Lee's calculator and go and see how much of a difference it's going to make to your soaping creations. Until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one, and I will see you then. Bye.